Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanande
Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale
Namaste Saraswati Devi
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Thakur Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Ki Jai, Govardhan Ki Jai, Vinay Ki Jai, Vasudev Ki Jai, Vasudev Ki Jai, Salve Bhakti Ki Jai, Glory Shri Krishna, Glory Krishna, Glory Krishna, Glory Krishna, Glory Krishna, Glory Krishna, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Samasta Pacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Katara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. For prema. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading chapter 9, Canto 9, chapter 19, text 15. This corresponds to the year 2019 and the date today, June 15. It's called King Yayati Achieves Liberation. Yada
Yada
na
na
kurute
karute
bhavam
bhavam
sarvabhuteshu
sarvabhuteshu
amangalam
amangalam
samadrishtes
samadrishtes
tada
tada
bhumsa
pumsa
sarva
sarva
sukamaya
sukhamaya
disha
disha
yada na kurute bhavam
yada kurute bhavam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
samadrishtes tada bhumsa
samadrishtes tada pumsa
sarva sukhaya maya disha.
sarva sukhamaya disha.
Please chant.
Yadana kurute bhavam yadana kurute bhavam sarvabhutes pamangalam sarvabhutes pamangalam samadristes tada pumsa samadristes tada pumsa sarva sukhamaya disha sarva sukhamaya disha.
Yadana kaute bhavam
Yadana kurute bhavam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
samadristes tada pumsa
samadristes tada pumsa
sarva sukhamaya disha.
sarva sukhamaya disha. Yadana karute bhavam yadana karute bhavam sarvabhuteshva mangalam sarvabhuteshva mangalam samadrishtes tada pumsa samadrishtes tada pumsa sarva sukhamaya disha sarva sukhamaya disha. The third word should be kurute, not karute. Yadana kurute bhavam sarvabhuteshva mangalam samadrishtes tada pumsa sarva sukhamaya disha.
Yadana kurute bhavam
Yadana kurute bhavam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
sarvabhuteshva mangalam
samadrishtes tada pumsa
samadrishtes tada pumsa
sarva sukhamaya disha.
sarva Sukhamayamisha.
Yada,
Yada,
when,
when,
not, kurute, does, bhavan, a different attitude of attachment or envy,
a different attitude of attachment or envy.
sarvabhuteshu,
Sarvabhuteshu,
to all living entities,
all living entities,
amangalam,
amangalam,
inauspicious, samadrishte, because of being equipoised, tada, at that time, Pumsa, of a person, sarva, all, shukamaya, in a happy condition, disha, directions. Translation and purport. When a man is not envious and does not desire ill fortune for anyone, he is equipoised. For such a person, all directions appear happy. Please repeat. When a man is non-envious and does not desire ill fortune for anyone, he is equipoised. For such a person, all directions appear happy. Prabodhananda Saraswati said, Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. When one becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, for him the entire world appears happy. And he has nothing for which to hanker. On the Brahma Buddha stage, or the platform of spiritual realization, there is no lamentation and no material hankering. Na sochati, na kamsati. Bhagavad Gita 18:54. As long as one lives in the material world, actions and reactions will continue, but when one is unaffected by such material actions and reactions, it's considered to be free from the danger of being victimized by material desires. The symptoms of those who are satiated with lusty desires are described in this verse. As explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when one is not envious even of his enemy, does not expect honor from anyone, but instead desires all well-being even for his enemy, he is understood to be Paramahamsa, one who has fully subdued the lusty desires for sense gratification. Chakshushamri Tamyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manavishtam Shtakitam Jaina Bhutale Shyam Rupakanamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uttapadakam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagajatam Saganam Raghunatham Mitam Tam Tam Sajim Sarvetam Sarvutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karan Sindhu Bandhu Jagapate Gopishan Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namaskute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vishwavan Sutadevi Pranami Hari Priya Vanchakapatu Yascha Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patinam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yada na kurute bhavan sarvabhutesha mangalam samadrishtes tada punsa sarvasukhamaya tisha. The idea that we've been discussing the last few days has been how people are victimized by lusty desires. And we've discussed the point 2 days ago, and Nadi Bihari discussed how there are symptoms of those who are satiated with lusty desires. Satiated means they become satisfied. He talked a lot about the Grihastha ashram and the expectation that Grihasthas will reach a point in which they feel, okay, that's fine, we've satisfied our desires now. And he talked about how that's not actually so reachable. It's not exactly like all the desires go away, but rather one continues to control his desires and realizes, but he's supposed to realize, it's not going to happen. I don't reach a point so easily where I'm, actually satisfied now. But one can understand this is how it works. You have to give up just the gratification of desires at some point. And yesterday, a very good classic course singer spoke about about subduing the lusty desires for sense gratification. He quoted many verses from Bhagavad Gita and directed our attention to this topic. Here there's some other symptoms given of one who has reached the stage of freedom. He's equipoised. He doesn't desire anything except well-being, even for his enemy, what to speak of others. And doesn't expect honor from anyone, doesn't lament, doesn't hanker. So of course this is a verse that we can easily relate to a person like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is instructing Arjuna, and he tells Arjuna, you have divine qualities, you're not envious, you're free of envy. So we could look to Arjuna as just an example of a person for whom everything appears, to be happy in all directions. It says this verse, things appear to be happy. Arjuna wasn't envious of his cousin brothers. He was willing to let them rule, and he thought, why should I fight over this? Why should I kill them? How can anyone be happy? And if the family is divided and there's a feud in the family and war breaks out, also Srila Prabhupada, of course, is such a non-envious person who definitely is an example of someone who desires the well-being of others and who endeavors for much of his life to bring the well-being of Krishna consciousness to everyone. And for him, Prabhupada Saraswati says, the entire world appears to be a happy place. Purna means complete, Sukha means happy, Vishvam means this world. He's quoted, Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. Srila Prabhupada had this exceptional quality of being able to feel happy in Krishna service anywhere, any place, and the devotees really picked that up. They thought this is very exceptional that this person doesn't experience the distress of the world. Many of us are experiencing lamentation and hankering, and we try to be happy, and we're disappointed in that endeavor because we're endeavoring for that in the wrong way. And Prabhupada could educate the whole world. You've got to become free of your miseries, not in the way that you're trying to do it, but seeking out external happiness. You have to find your mistake. The mistake you're making is you're not on the spiritual path to Krishna, and therefore you're trying to make yourself happy, and you're not thinking of Krishna's happiness. But if you take care of Krishna's happiness, then you'll become happy. So this is the well-being that Srila Prabhupada offered everyone, to become connected. Constitutionally, everyone is part of Krishna, so there's happiness in serving Krishna, and Prabhupada was teaching everyone to serve Krishna. We've all had experience. We've endeavored for our own well-being, and even for the well-being of those who we love in family or society. I remember one of my college teachers, who was a young teacher from Germany. He was in Minnesota in the United States. He got a job. And he was talking sometimes about well-being, and we were discussing in a humanities class some writings of Germans and other Europeans. And, it was this idea it was, you could say, esoteric in a sense, well-being. How do we find well-being? Even the hippies wanted to do that. I was a hippie in college. And, all the aspiration was, how can the world be peaceful and happy in a sense? But this eluded us because we had so many other preoccupations with what we thought would be our well-being, and we missed the target. But Srila Prabhupada came and delivered the happiness that makes the universe a happy place for everyone. One of the times that I was fortunate in seeing Prabhupada was in Chicago in 1975. The day he came to Chicago, he had a press conference, and the topic was that women are less intelligent. And I think that was the topic. That was one of the topics. Anyway, he had an interview. Maybe it was also crime. He had read that cover story of Time magazine, Crime and What to Do about it. And he spoke to the mayor about that later. But anyway, that was at the airport. And then the next morning, he came to the temple for the greeting of the deities. And all the devotees were there. Of course, whenever Prabhupada, came to a city, many devotees from other cities came, and we had a big group of devotees outside the temple at 7 in the morning, chanting in a big loud kirtan for Prabhupada. And our neighbors called us on the telephone not long after and said, "What are you people doing at 7 in the morning? Waking us up. Waking up the sleeping souls. You should let the sleeping souls sleep." So the next day we had the kirtan inside the front doors. And we didn't have a lobby like here in the chateau, we have a huge lobby here. We could hold maybe 200 devotees. But there we had a smaller lobby, probably like the size of the temple room, or smaller, I think, because it was so packed that we were just tight, shoulder to shoulder. And when Prabhupada entered the temple room, we wanted to pay our obeisances, but actually, when I looked down, by the time I looked down to find a spot, there was no spot to bow down. And there was one path for Prabhupada between the door, front door, and the door of the temple room, so he could walk in. And I was standing near that path, and I had in my hand a flower that I had picked when I walked around the temple, chanting Japa, it's a nice flower. And I was going to give it to Srila Prabhupada Guru Puja, but here he was walking in, and I was standing, I couldn't bow down. So I bowed down from my waist. And I held the flower out. I thought, maybe now I'll offer it. And I felt the flower disappear from my hand. So I looked up and Prabhupada was smiling. And smelling the flower, so I felt very good. And he was Krishna's representative, so he was doing, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakta Prayachati. If you offer Krishna or Krishna's representative just a flower, you can satisfy him. If there's bhakti, if you're making an offering of devotion. And Prabhupada was representing Krishna, so he would also accept our offerings of flowers and so on. Now, I brought the Bhagavad Gita because, in this verse, there's this reference in the purport to the Brahma Buddha stage of spiritual realization. And I thought we could talk about that verse. Prabhupada quotes it, quotes part of it, Nasochiti Nakamchiti. It's 1854. Because that's actually what the topic is today, according to the text itself. Non-enviousness is symptomized by not hankering and not lamenting. That's the sign that you're on the spiritual platform. When we're in this world, the purport says, when we're in this world, living in this world, we're getting involved in actions, and we're getting the reactions to previous actions, that's karma. So we're affected by those. But when you're not affected by those actions and reactions, then you're considered free from material desires and free from the danger of being victimized by lust and kama or desire. We want that freedom. Now that might come about by satisfying some of your desires. It's not that we become desireless, because we have senses and our senses are active. We can't just close our eyes and say, I will no longer see anything. I'll become unentangled from the world by not engaging my senses. You have to see. You can't stop your sight. You don't become blind in spiritual life. So Prabhupada said you should desire to see the beautiful form of the all-attractive person. Then you'll be satisfied by seeing. And he gave other examples of this. Desire, he said the desire cannot be stopped, but a pure devotee desires to have a wonderful temple for Krishna. Whereas a person who has material desires wants a wonderful house for his family. There are examples of people spending millions of dollars on houses. But But if you would ask them, please spend $1 million or several $1 million on a temple, it wouldn't occur to them. They're absorbed in their family activities, the actions and reactions of family life, and affected by these desires. So much hankering, lamenting. It's difficult for them to be God conscious, Krishna conscious. They're envious. Actually, the mind is the source of envy. That mind is the source, the reservoir of greediness. And material life is characterized by greed and envy. We want things, we want many things to enjoy. We want the good things of life. And we're envious a little bit when we see other people have them. If you go to the big shopping center, and you see all the shops with all the expensive new items, and you can't afford them, then you might feel a lamentation. Oh, I could be happy if I had these things. And let's say that some very, very rich person goes shopping and can have anything. It doesn't mean necessarily that that person will become happy. Because when we try to satisfy our desires, it's compared, just a few verses back, it was compared to putting butter or ghee on the fire. When we have a sacrifice here and we start a little fire and pour ghee on the fire, that increases the flames, it acts as fuel on the fire. So this is discussed in the Shastra, how desire is increased by feeding it. Trying to satisfy our desire, we would think, well, I'll become satisfied, but then I'll be satiated, but it doesn't happen like that. So I'm gonna read, there's a short purport, not so long. I'm gonna read some of this purport to 1854, which describes freedom from this hankering and lamenting and so on. The verse is when one is transcendently situated, when one becomes one with the Absolute. Brahman is the word used for Absolute. Brahman, Brahma, Bhuta, becoming one with the Absolute. And realizes, I'm spirit soul, I'm servant of the Supreme Soul. Then he becomes fully joyful and never laments or desires, and becomes equally disposed toward all living entities and attains pure devotion to me. And Prabhupada, of course, starts the purport talking about the impersonalists who might think that achieving this stage means becoming one with God, or one with the Super Soul, or one with Brahman. But one has to go still further and become engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And that's the stage of liberation called Brahmabhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Now there's a sort of logical point that Prabhupada brings up next. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service to him. You have to have the same quality as the Supreme. Therefore, we have the regulative principles which guide us toward becoming pure. We want to be pure enough to serve the Supreme Pure. That's the purification process of Krishna consciousness. In the absolute conception, there's no difference between the served and the servitor. Yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. In the material concept of life, one works for sense gratification, and there's misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there's no misery. the devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. So this is absence. Since God is full, Purnam is the word, Purnam, Purnam. He's complete, he's full. So a living entity who's engaged in God's service also becomes full in himself. You become whole. Then the nice image, simile, is used. He's just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. A clear, flowing river. That's a nice feeling. We like to go outside, and if we walk at a stream, we feel very pleased because the stream is making a sound, the water is clear. And actually Ayurveda says that's good for the nervous system in the body. The energy is flowing through the nerves and through the blood is flowing. So the body also flows internally. So the devotee becomes like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because the devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he's naturally always joyful. And that was Srila Prabhupada's state of mind which attracted his disciples. He's naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain. So I have to practically apply this verse now because this morning I lost my kurta to the flower garland and it's now stained purple. And these stains don't come out. So I have to bear this loss without lamentation. No problem. There are other kurtas. Bhagavad Gita says we change our kurtas when they become old or worn out or stained or whatever. There's so many stains, And Vasamsi Jainani Yata Vihaya Navani Kudananti Naruprani. We can get new clothes, that's no problem. And then the nice point Krishna makes, you can get a new body also. When the old body has served its term. Now the devotee feels full in the service of the Lord. Krishna is full, Krishna is complete, Purnam, and the devotee feels that. He has no desire for material enjoyment because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Lord and therefore eternally a servant. So that changes your relationship to people. Normally we look to people and we, in our past, before we became devotees, we were thinking, my fullness, my sense of being complete will come about somehow if I have a relationship with someone else in this world. This usually married life makes a man or woman feel complete, Prabhupada said. But the conception of other people changes when you learn Krishna consciousness. You understand everyone is eternally a servant. And therefore you don't see somebody as higher, somebody as lower, because higher and lower positions are ephemeral, they're temporary. And the devotee has nothing to do with the temporary appearances and disappearances in this world. So like that, Prabhupada has described this no lamentation, no hankering in today's verse. I'll stop. Any questions or comments? About envy or other topics that we started to discuss?
There was in the purport, it was mentioned the senses get satiated, but they're also mentioned in the senses are subdued. subdued. So that's a different emotion, no? Satiated or subdued. It seems like you said it.
Yes, they're different. Yeah, I think they're different, yeah.
Yeah.
One can subdue one's desires. Nadi Bihari was talking about this the other day. You know.
But Yayati, he tried to satiate his senses.
King Yayati tried to satiate his senses.
But still, in the end, he had to subdue them.
Yeah, he had to subdue them eventually. He became awakened to Krishna consciousness and took up devotional service, and then he taught his wife, he taught the same to his wife.
But was it by satiating his senses or by subduing them? Because this sounds a little bit contradictory, that we have to first satiate our senses before we come to Krishna consciousness. Prahlad Maharaj is saying the other.
He was saying,
I mean, we should just engage in devotional service right from the start.
yes, that was Srila Prabhupada's idea, that if the devotees were engaged in the actual service to the Supreme Absolute Truth, they would not be bothered by desires so much. They would develop good qualities like non-enviousness, and they would desire the well-being of others also. By preaching, one reaches out to people and tries to give them what is good for them. Just like the teacher I mentioned in college who was saying, find your well-being. We were studying literature, some German literature, and the authors were writing what is good, what can we get out of life that's good for ourselves and will make our well-being, establish our well-being. So if one comes to that stage, then his symptoms are described here. He's satiated or subdued his lusty desires and desires the other person's well-being. And all directions appear happy for him. You want to continue saying something?
No, because the senses never get satiated.
They never get satiated. Well, in some cases they may. Otherwise, it would be meaningless to talk about it. Sometimes people may feel satiated. I mean, we become satiated with eating. We eat and we feel, oh, now I'm satisfied. So like that.
It's not like for example, somebody who likes to drink, and he'll just drink and drink and drink until he gets rock bottom. It sounds like, okay, senses are satiated. When he reaches rock bottom, then he feels like, okay, now I want to get out.
Well, satiation can be different. Satiation could be in a mode of goodness, where you have enough and you're satisfied with enough.
Okay.
Yes?
You mentioned also that the lusts are the seat of the lust. Do you hear me? You mentioned also, thank you for your class. I hear that the seat of the lust in the Bhagavad Gita is not just in the mind, it's also in the intelligence and the ego. It's in the subtle body, they said, in the Bhagavad Gita.
Well, the Bhagavad Gita has relevance for the mind and the ego and the intelligence and the self, whatever level. We're sometimes on the mental level, and sometimes that's where we have that lamentation and hankering. The mind can accept or reject. And the ego is identification with the senses and the mind. And then when the false ego is identifying with the body and mind, then it engages the intelligence. Help us. Come on, intelligence, help us in this endeavor to satisfy the body and mind. So the Bhagavad Gita is addressing all levels of the self, and, saying don't be caught up in those endeavors, but turn your attention to another level, with another level beyond your spiritual level, and engage on the spiritual platform, and then you'll see things differently. You'll perfect your human life on that level, that higher level. Yes, really.
But isn't it that the best way of cessation of lust is to subdue it and direct it towards the service of Krishna? Because the desire cannot be taken away. Desire can be redirected in the right direction. That's my understanding of
Yes,
cessation and subdue is the cessation means to stop, and subdue means, or one of the meanings is to direct it in a different direction. Instead of for my own sense gratification, I subdue it and direct it towards pleasing Krishna. And this way the lust is, or the energy of the lust is redirected from lust to love, to using it in the right ways.
it's purified, and that will satiate the desire.
Well, satiation, as far as I understand, means stopping. So
Stopping. I think it means satisfying, satiation. Filling up, you're filled up, satiated. Cessation means stopping. It sounds like satiation, but cessation, spelled with a C, cessation means to stop. And satiation means feeling satisfied. In relation with Krishna, we feel the highest pleasure, the highest happiness. If we experience our relationship with Krishna, then we have a higher taste. And then we can, even though we have desires, we can proceed without trying to satisfy the lower desires. I looked in the Bhagavad Gita in the index for verses that refer to envy, since today's verse is talking about a person who's non-envious. And I'll just tell you there, I found 5 verses about envy. But all of them are really about freedom from envy, or being without envy. Krishna says to Arjuna, I'll tell you about the Bhagavad Gita because you are without envy. And this knowledge, when you realize this knowledge, you'll become free from inauspiciousness. That's another word used in today's verse. Amangalam. Inauspicious. In the 3rd chapter, Krishna says, persons who follow his teachings, people who follow my teachings and have faith in my teachings and envy no one, they're not envious, they're freed from the effects of karma. Next verse he says, but those who are envious of my teachings, who don't follow it, they become lost and thoughtless. They can't think clearly. In the 4th chapter, Krishna says, be free of envy, cross beyond duality, be satisfied with the gain that comes of its own accord. This applies to the topic of lamenting hankering, because everybody is told if you want to get ahead, just get into the economic system, get a job, earn money, and with that money, that's like honey, you can buy what you want. And you'll gain a salary and you'll be able to satisfy your desires. But Krishna is saying, no, you should be satisfied with gain, which comes of its own accord, which comes spontaneously. Because we're going to get happiness and distress in this world based on what happened in a previous life. We're going to get the reactions to what we did in our previous life. So gain and loss will come automatically. So Krishna says, be the same in success and failure. Be free of envy and just accept what's coming to you spontaneously. This was, for me, a persuasive verse. Before I became a devotee, the first time I met Satsuru Maharaj and Jayadvaita and Vedananda in Minneapolis, they had put up a poster on the telephone poles near where they lived with this verse on that. Be satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. And this philosophy really applied to me because I had finished college and everybody was pushing me out. What are you going to do next? Are you going to become a lawyer? Are you going to get a job? And when you become serious about that, you have to think how your whole life is going to be fitting into this economic world that everybody lives in. You're going to have to earn and you're going to have to spend and try to become happy based on spending and earning. And here Krishna is saying, forget that. That's not the right system to. You should work under my system. My system is you're going to get gain that comes of its own accord. So don't try for artificial gain. Everybody wants artificially to gain something from the material objects that are available. I'll get this, I'll get that. And you envy others. You end up envying others who have those things. And then the last verse about envy, freedom from envy, Krishna says that's a divine quality. Along with vitality and patience and purity and absence of pride, humility, these are attributes of those who have a divine birth. And he says also, don't teach others the Bhagavad Gita who are envious. When we're beginning devotees and we are encouraged to go out and distribute books, we might tell our leader, well, I don't want to, just go out and give these books to everybody because I know a lot of people are materialistic and they're envious. So better I don't go out on Sankirtan. Too many people are envious.
So what is the answer if a devotee says this to the temple commander? He says, oh, I don't want to go to distribute books because people are envious, and Krishna says not to speak about his knowledge to envious people. So what would you answer to this person? Would you say to him, yes, stay here, chant Hare Krishna, and don't go out, or would you say something?
What would you do? What would you say?
I wanted to hear the other.
You what?
Well, Srila Prabhupada says that one who takes all kind of risks for the sake of Krishna, Krishna is pleased by this person.
Yeah. We have to face. A preacher has to face others who are envious, and they'll reject him or even blaspheme him. But this is a symptom of a Madhyama Adhikari, a person who's qualified to preach, ignores the envious people. He can understand, okay, I'll just ignore that person. He's too envious of Krishna's teachings. So you learn to discriminate. And you tell others who are interested about Krishna's teachings. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
Where does everything come from?
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Ram,